So I went to Georgetown University in the late 90s, and I studied theology, religion. And but while I was there, I actually became very interested in the sciences, specifically astrophysics, particle physics, and even quantum theory. Specifically, I loved about quantum theory was the idea that at the smallest level of the building blocks of matter, like very weird things seem to happen. It's almost as if there are infinite possibilities that exist for what goes on in the world. One thing happens, and simultaneously, other quantum realities are also created and alternate universes kind of split off from our current universe, apparently, in some theories. I see some scientists nodding. So our universe is here, and another universe is over here or over there. Unfortunately for me, though, my university was not known for the sciences, and so it was wise for me to stick to theology, which I did. And so quantum stuff became just a hobby for me. To help pay my exorbitant fees and tuition, as a student, I worked at the university library, which some of you might remember from previous stories of mine. I wasn't the best student at my university. Maybe I was one of the worst students. There was this thing called class rank that came out when you graduate, and I could not believe how low on the list I was. And maybe one of the reasons why I was such a terrible student was because at my university, where people studied, where they really seriously bore down to study, was at the library. See, I worked at the library, so I didn't want to go back to the library to then study. The idea of doing that was repulsive to me. And I didn't like my job either that much, so I didn't want to go back to the library. But I had a meeting with my advisor recently that said that I had reached academic crisis. And my grades were so low that I needed to really pull them up to start studying. So it really hit me one Friday when I realized, oh my God, this is a test I didn't even know about, coming up on Monday or Tuesday. I haven't done the reading all semester. It's time for me to actually do some work. So option one was to do the studying at my apartment, which was a very popular apartment. My roommates were much popular than I was, and there was always it was a high traffic area, and there was always a lot of people coming through there, so that was not possible for me to study there. So that left only one possibility, to go to the library. So it was my first time. This is my third year at university. This is my first time going to the library to study on a Friday night. So, wow, this is unprecedented for me. So I packed up all my stuff. I think what you're supposed to do is take some things with you, and so I had to look that up, so I put all my stuff in my bag, and I went to the library, and I walked in there, and you can imagine on a Friday night, even at my rather studious university, on a Friday night there was hardly anyone in the library. It was basically empty. We had if anyone's been to Georgetown University, they have a big reading room in their main library, and it's just like a lot of universities have a very large place where you can take all of your stuff that you gathered from various floors and come and spread out and read it. So I walked in there and set myself up, and there were three other people in there. There was a guy way off in the distance, and then there was a guy sitting on a couch across from me, and then there was a girl over here on the right at a table. And I pulled out my book, and I probably read for a good 4 minutes before I needed a little break. And during this break, I'm just kind of looking a little bit closer at the other people in the library, and maybe I was looking in particular at this one girl who was sitting, or as much as you can look at someone without turning and really looking at them, but I was 20 at the time, so maybe my hormones were out of control a little bit. But let's just say I had a hard time concentrating on the reading that I wasn't doing anyway. So then the question arose for me: do I go home? I can't. I remember flashback to the advisor, academic crisis, can't go home. You must do something about this. Do I succumb to my instincts and go talk to this woman? Absolutely not. That's not possible. That's not possible if anybody knows how I'm wired. I could never do something like that. But I came up with a brilliant solution, which was, instead of actually talking to her, I'm just going to purge myself of all the things I would have possibly said to her and get them out of my system and write them all down. And that way, when I'm finished with that, it will be just like I had talked to her, and then I can put that whole thing away and concentrate on the reason why I'm here. So for the first moment where I was actually excited, I pulled out a notebook and got my pen out and just started writing. It said me at the top and then a little colon, and then it said her. And I was furiously writing away. I was really amusing myself with this. I thought I was so clever. And I was making witty fun of the other people in the library. The guy way in the distance had spread out all of his books, and he was like doing a mock presentation or something like that. Like massive overachiever, you know. I had like a tie on or something like that. It was Friday night. And he's doing that, so I had a little stanza about him, and then there was the guy across from me was like reading like that, you know, so lots of material for me to make some jokes about. Maybe a few jokes at my own expense, which is always good if you're writing a little dialogue. And I was very pleased. I think it was 3 pages, two and a half pages by the time it was finished, and I was extremely pleased with myself. So I put it away, obviously, and went back to work. And I must have read for a good 8 minutes before I realized that this whole studying thing was not for me. And I said, forget it, I can't do this, I don't know, it's just not working. I am just going to go home. So I packed up my stuff and got ready to go. Second page. But there's this thing about me, like I'm an extremely logical person. We were just talking about this the other day. I love logic. I'm obsessed with logic. And I can use logic and reasoning to talk myself out of any situation. Like talk myself into any situation or out of any situation. So, which is why when I had this incredibly crazy impulse all of a sudden, I knew I had about 1 second to actually act on it before I took the step to talk myself out of it. And which was on my way out the door for some unknown reason. I pulled this thing out of my pocket, folded it up in a square, put it in front of this girl, and continued walking out the door. Jeez. Just telling it now, my heart is racing because at the moment that it happened, my heart was like pounding out of my chest. Like, what did I just do? Oh my God, when you write something for yourself like that, and then all of a sudden you put it in front of someone else, what? And where I happened to live, I had to exit the library and then kind of make if you can imagine, like kind of like a U-turn to then pass the full length of the library again, including the big bay window where the reading room was. So I was like debating, do I look over and see what's happening? Do I need to? But of course, I just had to sneak just a little peek. And she was like stone-faced, looking at this note. And I couldn't believe what I did. And I walked home, and I did something that resembled studying that night. And I was very glad that I relocated, because I actually got something done and read. And, but of course, I had to do it with some unnecessary drama, which is pretty much what I always do. So skip ahead 3 months. 3 months later, it was a Sunday night, and I was in the coffee. Our campus there's actually a lot of students at that school, but the campus itself was quite small, and we had one coffee shop on campus where you could go and get a cup of coffee, and there was seating for maybe 40 or 50 people or something like that. People would go there to hang out and study and things like that. So on this Sunday, I was in there getting a cup of coffee alone, and I got my coffee and I came and sat down in a seat. and I just happened to glance up when somebody walked in the door, and it was this woman walked in the door to get into line, to get something for herself. And I hadn't seen her since that night. And I actually, strangely enough, I hadn't even really thought about it. I think that I had basically put this humiliating experience away in some black hole part of my brain to never be retrieved again. But when I saw her, I realized I had not seen her before, since during that time. And oh my God, it's her, it's her, it's the girl. And I realized, well, because I noticed these things, I realized she was getting the order to stay. She wasn't getting an order to go. And I looked around, I glanced around at the coffee shop, and it was full. It was a Sunday night, it was completely full, except there were 2 seats empty in the entire place. One of them was the seat across from me, and the other one was a weird, table for one just to my left. Okay? The rest of the seats were occupied. So she, of course, my heart is kind of racing again. She gets her coffee and then is doing that normal thing where you kind of look, where do I sit now? Are there any empty seats? And then she sees something and she starts walking. And now I'm looking down thinking, oh my God, she's walking towards me. She's walking directly towards me. So I'm really bracing myself, oh my God, she knows who I am, and she's coming to talk to me. So I don't know why, I conjured that in my head. So I was sitting there, and now I can see her, walking towards me. She's right on top of me. And I actually looked up to say something. I don't know what to say, but as soon as I looked up with this anticipatory expression, she calmly just took this table for one directly on my left here and sat down. She doesn't know who I am, which is probably a good thing. And I always thought that somebody watching this scene at what happens at this point from a distance would have thought I was completely crazy, because I don't know why, but part of me wanted to just sneak out of the coffee shop, so grateful that she didn't notice who I am, that I didn't have to bring up this experience. But the other part of me, for some reason, wanted to know if she knew who I was, and I don't know why. I felt like I needed to know this. So these two parts were kind of wrestling with me. Do I leave, or do I do something? And I turned to my left, and this is the part that somebody looking from a distance would think I was crazy, because I put my hand up to tap her on her back at least 3 times. It was really close there. And then the third time I tapped her on the back. And she turned around with a blank expression on her face. And I said to her, I think that we know each other. I think that we've met before. And she said, politely, but still blank, no, I know for sure that we've never met before. And I said, no, I said, I'm sure that we've met before. And she's just looking at me, and I said, a few months ago, I left you a note in the library, and her face completely changes. This massive smile comes across her face, and she reached down for in her backpack. You know these backpacks that has these multiple zippers. One is smaller than the other. She reaches down into her backpack and opens the smallest compartment, the smallest pouch, and reaches into her bag and pulls out a piece of paper. This is the note, and it looks like it has been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. It just has that crease to it, that perfectly creased paper. She said, "You wrote this? This is the funniest thing I have ever seen." And at that moment, I think I felt better than I ever felt in my entire life. I mean, I felt like a million bucks. It was just a great feeling. I said, "Yes, I did write that. I'm glad you enjoyed it." And she's just radiating. She is radiating. I'm radiating. We're just having this moment. And I said, "Well, maybe this sounds crazy, but it's the weekend. You're here by yourself. I'm here by myself. Why don't we find something to do together?" And then she said, "I have a boyfriend, no thanks," turned her chair around, and we never spoke again. So although I personally have a very low, I put a very low value on first impressions, I do really believe in intuition. And my intuition did not prepare me for what happened that night with me and this woman whose name I never actually ended up getting. Quantum theory would say that the universe that I'm inside right now, in this universe, our mutual path together, me and her, stopped right there at the moment that she turned her chair around. But I would like to think that in a parallel universe, not too far from this one, her answer was a little bit different when I asked her out. And instead of telling my story here to you, I've told it so many times, over and over, that our kids are sick of hearing it. Thank you.